put together this essay in the chat. So I generated it after exchanges with skeptics and stuff, these other ones that I argue with, right? In order to reinforce the belief in the American covenant, right? So I want to go over, was not really going over the exchange, but I put it together in the form of an essay, so it's not necessarily like a defense of it, but I guess just fleshing out the whole thing. That's what I was trying to do through all those exchanges. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out, I guess. It's also based on like some more books I got, but I put them in the works cited section. So I guess the idea is the sacred oaths, right? That you can trace from the Pilgrims to the Declaration, how God and the Pilgrim, then the Pilgrim spirituality and the biblical covenant tradition, God, creates a people through the covenant, right? And then those people create a civic body, and it represents that kind of order, right? And it's like part of their identity, I guess. And then tie it into like the Declaration and civic structures of our nation, right? And that's showing at least the continuity there in spirit, and how this shapes identity as a people. So it's not just shared morals, but shared identity for all Americans, because I believe like is something you need, right? To be a unified people as an American. Like, what is the American? You have identity politics, and people asking about what is the American, right? And so I hope to flesh it out here with this essay, basically. So like, just America as a covenant, peoplehood, providence, and the sacred oaths of a nation. It says, from the first Pilgrim Compact on the Mayflower to the Declaration of Independence, the United States is rooted in a profound covenantal tradition. The Pilgrims fleeing persecution in England did not conceive of freedom in the modern sense of individual choice, but as a sacred obligation to form a society bound together under the same God. Their compacts and constitutions were sacred oaths to the Almighty, shaping a people who understood themselves as a community under divine guidance. This covenantal foundation established a shared identity, a moral conscience, and a civic character. The very prototype of American nationhood, John 1:12-13, reminds us that God gives peoplehood not by flesh or human will, but through His covenant. And this same principle animated the Pilgrims' vision of a holy commonwealth, one that would become the bedrock of American civic life. The Declaration of Independence builds on this sacred heritage, extending the covenantal we of the Pilgrims to the entire emerging nation. When the Declaration asserts that the people pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, it echoes the Pilgrims' covenantal oaths while emphasizing dependence upon the same God who guided Israel of old. This is not merely a rhetorical flourish. It signals that the American people exist as a community under the same God, bound together by shared moral responsibility and historical destiny. As Jefferson himself noted in his second inaugural address, the forefathers were guided as Israel of old, a framing that situates American identity firmly within the covenantal life of Scripture, reinforcing the covenant life. Obedience, moral responsibility, and communal accountability provides the foundation for liberty and the pursuit of happiness. The Constitution and the structures of federalism continue this covenantal vision. While critics describe the Constitution as godless, the founders themselves acknowledged the aid of providence in guiding the Constitutional Convention through unprecedented challenges. Madison, Franklin, and Washington explicitly recognized divine guidance in their writings, emphasizing that the Union's formation could not have occurred without the hand of God. James H. Hudson records John Adams stating that the Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, while Benjamin Franklin and James Madison marveled at the providential navigation of the Convention's difficulties. George Washington similarly traced the finger of Providence to the steps that established the new government. These reflections underscore that the Constitution is not secular by accident, but covenantal in nature, designed to safeguard a people entrusted by God with liberty, justice, and community. American federalism itself is covenantal, emphasizing stewardship rather than ecclesiastical rule. The division of powers mirrors biblical structures of governance, where Moses, Aaron, kings, priests, and prophets exercised distinct yet complementary authority. This division ensures justice, accountability, and protection of rights, echoing the covenantal principle that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are entrusted by God to a people bound together under His law and moral order. Daniel J. Lazar's concept of covenantal federalism captures this continuity, showing that American civic structures extend the biblical principle of a covenant community into law and political design. The Constitution, federalism, and legal frameworks function as a covenant between God and the American people, preserving moral order while maintaining liberty. The Enlightenment ideals that influenced the founders, particularly those of Lockean Christianity and Common Sense realism, further reinforced this covenantal vision. These streams emphasize reason, moral law, and natural rights, but within a framework that presupposes a covenant God as a source of justice, liberty, and human dignity. Far from advocating secular morality divorced from God, the founders integrated Enlightenment rationality with covenantal responsibility, ensuring that political legitimacy flowed from both the consent of the governed and the moral law of God. Even dissenting and persecuted Christians in Virginia, as Deborah Neal documents, viewed religious liberty and disestablishment not as secularism, but as the proper outworking of Christian conscience, preserving faith's purity and moral influence without coercion. Thus, the American covenant is expressed in layers. The Pilgrims' sacred oaths established a covenant people. The Declaration formalizes a national pledge under God. The Constitution codifies the legal covenant, ensuring governance under the same moral order. And federalism operationalizes covenantal stewardship, protecting liberty while binding citizens to a shared civic identity. This establishment, far from severing God from the public sphere, exemplifies the Christian principle that His kingdom advances not by force but through voluntary obedience and moral persuasion. The sacred oaths of the Pilgrims and the founders reveal a powerful continuity, showing that American identity, civic structures, and destiny are gifts of the same covenant God, under whose guidance the nation was formed, preserved, and entrusted to the people. In conclusion, the American covenant demonstrates that the United States is more than a collection of laws or political experiments. It is a peoplehood created by God, sustained by divine moral law, and governed by structures reflecting covenantal principles. Liberty, justice, and civic life are all embedded within this divine relationship, where identity, conscience, community, and destiny flow from one God who provides for the people He has called and bound together in covenant. This is the enduring proof that America, from the sacred oaths of the Pilgrims to the Constitution and the federalist structure, exists as a covenant people, uniquely tasked to live, govern, and flourish under the moral and providential guidance of the Almighty. And so that is the essay. And I asked, you can post the sources cited, right, that we used. And so these are the books that I used and some of the sources, right? So anyway, that's pretty much it, I guess. Yeah. So if you like my videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you and God bless.